The burglars had remained steadfast in their silence. Then Sareka received a letter from McCord.
I got the letter, opened it up, and I started reading it to myself, naturally. Hell, when I got down to the part where indicating other people were involved and perjury was committed, I said, oh my God. I said, what a break. I said, this is what I've been waiting for, somebody to break in this case, see?
The letter revealed that political pressure had been applied to the burglars to remain silent. Perjury had occurred during the trial. Others involved in the break-in could have been named, but were not.
After everybody left my home, I said, Todd, you mark my word. This letter is going to break this case wide open. I said, you watch that crowd in the White House when they read this letter, when they hear about it.
John Dean saw it coming. Just 2 days before McCord's letter was made public, he warned the president that the cover-up could not continue.
I began by telling the president that there was a cancer growing on the presidency, and if the cancer was not removed, the president himself would be killed by it. And I wanted to explain to him how the continued support would be necessary, how continued perjury would be necessary to perpetuate the cover-up.
Did you use those terms?
Yes, I did use those terms.
All right, sure, go ahead.
That was my definition to him of how the cancer was growing. In other words, that more people would have to perjure.
Did you say these things as an advocate, that is, that further support and perjury should continue, or as examples why it should not continue?
As why it should not continue.
Did you make that clear to the president?
Absolutely. Well, as I say, I tried to make it as dramatic as the fact that the cancer of this type of activity was going to kill him and kill the presidency if something wasn't done about it and it wasn't stopped by surgery, and that meant ending that sort of activity.
What was the president's reaction to that?
The meeting with the president that afternoon was a tremendous disappointment to me because it was quite clear that the cover-up was going to continue. What emerged from that discussion was that John Mitchell should account for himself for the pre-June 17th activities, and the president did not seem concerned about the activities which had occurred after June 17th.
Do you think my husband's that stupid? And whom do you think he's been protecting? Whom?
I have no idea who.
Mr. President he has been protecting under no uncertain circumstances. And as I told you a few minutes ago, that when I asked him, he said to me that if anything happened to Mr. President, the whole country would fall apart. Yes. And if you remember, a few weeks ago, I suggested that Mr. President resign. Well, it's a darn better idea that he resign than be impeached.
Martha Mitchell was one of the first to point her finger directly at the president. As the cover-up unraveled, Dean and Magruder began to talk to the federal prosecutors. Their stories implicated Haldeman and Ehrlichman, and the president was forced to accept their resignations, as well as Dean's. All the while, the senators and the public tried to figure out who was telling them the truth.
On April 17, 1973, the president said this: I condemn any attempts to cover up in this case, no matter who is involved. Do you believe he was telling the truth on that date?
No, sir.
Now, I guess you're fully aware, Mr. Dean, of the gravity of the charges you have made under oath against the highest official of our land, the President of the United States.
Yes, I am.
And being so aware, do you still stand on your statement?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
I might add this, Mr. Dash. I realize it's almost an impossible task if it's one man against the other that I'm up against, and it's not a very pleasant situation, but I can only speak what I know to be the facts, and that's what I'm providing this committee.
I'm very concerned, Mr. Dean, about the truth that might come out of these hearings, and whether or not Your credibility will be sustained by the American people, or whether or not the president's will be sustained or tarnished.
As for the cover-up, my statement has been challenged by only one of the 35 witnesses who appeared. A witness who offered no evidence beyond his own impressions and whose testimony has been contradicted by every other witness in a position to know the facts.
To put it bluntly, your testimony is that John Dean told an untruth.
Yes, sir. Twice. Once in the out-of-town tryout and once here.
The one thing that keeps recurring to me, and the one thing I've tried to put to every witness that has unique information, in addition to their own personal information and knowledge, is what did the president know and when did he first know it?
Alexander Butterfield didn't know what the president knew, but he knew how to find out. And what he had to say was a bombshell that blew Watergate wide open.
Mr. Butterfield, are you aware of the installation of any listening devices in the Oval Office of the President?
I was aware of listening devices. Yes, sir.
From 1970 then until the present time, all of the President's conversations in the offices mentioned and on the telephones mentioned were recorded, as far as you know.
That's correct until I left.
If one were, therefore, to reconstruct the conversations at any particular date, what would be the best way to reconstruct those conversations, Mr. Butterfield, in the President's Oval Office?
Well, in the obvious manner, Mr. Dash, to obtain the tape and play it.
Once they knew of the existence of the recordings, the senators immediately asked for them. But President Nixon turned them down, and thus the battle of the tapes was joined.